You reduced your carbohydrates, counted every calorie carefully, and spent long sessions on the treadmill until your legs felt completely exhausted. Logically, the weight should be dropping. The numbers suggest you are in a calorie deficit, yet when you check the mirror, that stubborn layer around your midsection remains unchanged. In some cases, it even appears softer, slightly inflamed, and more difficult to eliminate. Many people assume this situation means they lack discipline or consistency, but that assumption is often incorrect. There is a biological explanation behind it. The issue is not always about eating less or exercising more. In reality, your body may be activating a hidden survival response that works against your efforts. While you are trying to burn fat, your body might be receiving chemical signals that encourage fat storage instead. This creates a confusing situation where your lifestyle appears healthy, but the results do not reflect your effort. If you have ever felt frustrated by doing everything correctly yet seeing little change in your belly fat, you are not alone. Many individuals experience this same challenge and begin to question their metabolism, their diet strategy, or their exercise routine. The truth is that the body sometimes responds to stress, lifestyle patterns, and hormonal signals in ways that override simple calorie calculations. By understanding the underlying mechanisms involved, you can begin to see why this stubborn fat remains and why traditional advice may not always solve the problem. To understand why belly fat behaves differently, we need to look beyond calories and examine biology. Research indicates that visceral fat, the fat stored around the abdominal organs, is chemically different from fat stored in areas such as the legs or hips. One key difference is that visceral fat contains a high concentration of cortisol receptors. These receptors function like sensitive antennas that detect stress signals in the body. When stress levels increase, cortisol rises, and these receptors respond strongly. While other areas of the body may ignore mild stress signals, abdominal fat tends to react more aggressively. Over time, this creates a cycle. Stress from work, lack of sleep, intense dieting, or excessive exercise increases cortisol. The abdominal fat cells respond to this hormone and may grow or become more active metabolically. As visceral fat increases, it releases inflammatory signals that can further influence stress hormone production. The result is a self-reinforcing loop where stress encourages fat storage, and the stored fat contributes to additional hormonal disruption. This process helps explain why some individuals appear relatively lean overall, but still carry a noticeable amount of belly fat. Their bodies may be operating in a constant state of physiological stress management. Instead of focusing on fat burning, the body prioritizes protection and energy storage. Another factor complicating fat loss is the relationship between cortisol, blood sugar, and insulin. Many people assume that avoiding sugar automatically keeps insulin levels low, but the body has additional mechanisms that can raise blood glucose. The liver functions as a highly active chemical laboratory. When cortisol increases, it can signal the liver to produce glucose internally through a process called gluconeogenesis. This process converts amino acids and other compounds into new glucose. As a result, even if someone has not eaten for many hours, blood sugar may still rise because the liver releases newly produced glucose into the bloodstream. When this happens, the pancreas responds by releasing insulin to regulate the glucose level. The surprising outcome is that both cortisol and insulin can remain elevated at the same time, even during fasting. Since insulin acts as a signal that limits fat burning, this hormonal combination can make weight loss extremely difficult. In simple terms, the body begins running on internally produced sugar, while fat stores remain largely untouched. This situation can occur even when someone follows a strict diet plan. Understanding this interaction between stress hormones and metabolic pathways reveals why fat loss is not always determined solely by food intake. Several common lifestyle habits can unintentionally contribute to this hormonal imbalance. One example is what could be called the endurance paradox. For many years, people were advised to perform long periods of moderate-intensity cardio to lose weight. Activities such as extended jogging sessions or daily elliptical workouts became popular because they burn calories and improve cardiovascular fitness. However, when performed excessively without sufficient recovery, this type of exercise may signal prolonged physical stress to the body. From an evolutionary perspective, humans historically walked long distances for survival and performed short bursts of intense activity when necessary. Continuous medium-intensity effort for long durations was less common. When the body perceives ongoing physical demand without adequate rest, cortisol levels may remain elevated. Over time, this hormone can contribute to muscle breakdown because muscle tissue can be converted into energy when the body feels under pressure. Losing muscle reduces metabolic rate, meaning the body burns fewer calories at rest. At the same time, elevated cortisol can promote fat storage around the abdominal area. The result is a frustrating outcome where weight might decrease slightly, but body composition becomes less favorable. Another challenge appears when fasting is combined with high levels of daily stress. Intermittent fasting has been widely discussed as a strategy for improving metabolic health and cellular repair. When used appropriately, it can support insulin regulation and metabolic flexibility. However, problems arise when extended fasting occurs in an already stressful lifestyle environment. For example, if someone sleeps only a few hours each night, works in a demanding environment, and then attempts to fast for 20 hours or longer, the body may interpret this as a severe shortage of resources. Instead of adapting positively, it may slow certain metabolic functions. The thyroid may reduce its activity, overall energy levels may decline, and the body may attempt to conserve stored energy. In this state, visceral fat becomes a protective reserve. The intention behind fasting is to lower insulin and encourage fat burning. But if the stress associated with fasting increases cortisol significantly, the liver may release glucose and trigger insulin again. This situation cancels out some of the metabolic advantages that fasting is supposed to provide. The result is a cycle of hunger, fatigue, and stalled fat loss. Breaking this pattern requires sending different signals to the body, signals that indicate safety rather than constant pressure. One practical adjustment involves changing how physical activity is approached. Instead of relying exclusively on long sessions of cardio, short walks after meals can be extremely beneficial. When muscles contract during walking, they can absorb glucose directly from the bloodstream without requiring large amounts of insulin. A brisk 10 to 15-minute walk after eating helps reduce blood sugar levels naturally. This simple habit supports digestion and reduces the need for large insulin responses. Over time, lower insulin levels reduce the signal for fat storage. In addition, this activity is gentle enough that it does not significantly elevate stress hormones. Another helpful strategy involves stabilizing overnight blood sugar levels for individuals who wake frequently during the night. In some cases, a very small amount of natural carbohydrate, such as a teaspoon of raw honey with a pinch of mineral-rich salt before sleep, may help maintain stable liver glycogen levels. This approach may prevent the sudden drop in blood sugar that can trigger nighttime adrenaline and cortisol release. By supporting stable sleep, the body gains access to deeper restorative stages of rest. Sleep quality plays a major role in hormonal balance. During deep sleep, the body releases growth hormone, which supports tissue repair, muscle maintenance, and fat metabolism. When sleep is interrupted by repeated stress signals, the body may spend the night producing cortisol and insulin instead of restorative hormones. Improving sleep therefore becomes an essential step in improving metabolic health. In addition to better sleep habits, occasional short bursts of high-intensity activity, such as brief sprints, can help stimulate growth hormone without causing prolonged stress. These efforts should be short and followed by full recovery. Nutrition timing is also important. If fasting is used, the eating window must provide sufficient nutrients, particularly protein. Adequate protein intake signals that the body has enough resources to maintain muscle and release stored fat. Without this nutritional support, fasting can resemble starvation rather than a controlled metabolic strategy. When these factors are considered together, it becomes clear that stubborn belly fat is rarely just a calorie equation. Instead, it often reflects a complex interaction between stress hormones, sleep quality, blood sugar regulation, and lifestyle habits. Reducing chronic stress signals, improving sleep stability, supporting balanced nutrition, and choosing appropriate exercise patterns can gradually shift the body away from defense mode. When the body senses stability rather than constant threat, hormonal balance begins to improve. Cortisol levels fall, insulin responses become more controlled, and fat metabolism becomes more efficient. Over time, the visceral fat that once seemed impossible to lose can begin to decrease. The key insight is that successful fat loss often depends on restoring metabolic safety rather than forcing the body into greater restriction. If you have experienced the common 3 a.m. wake-up pattern or struggled with persistent belly fat despite disciplined habits, share your experience in the comments. Understanding these patterns is the first step toward solving them.